Hey guys, this is the MMA Breakdown, back with my predictions for UFC Fight Night 63, Mendes versus Lamas. Uh, the main card here, I think, is good. A lot of interesting fights, but really just the main and co-main event are enough to really get me pumped for this card. Mendes versus Lamas and Masvidal versus Iaquinta. I think that's superb matchmaking for both of those fights. Really high stakes, relevant fights. And that really, those two fights make this card for me. And the rest of the main card, six fight main card, has some decent fights. Some guys I really like watching: Dustin Poirier, Chiesa, and the preliminary card. Really kind of grateful that we get a really short prelim card here. No fight past prelims, only a four fight prelim card. Not great, really just great Maynard, Carmouche. Nothing I'm terribly excited to see, but more than anything with this card, besides the two fights at the top, the great fights, the 10 a.m. start time, that to me is just beautiful. I wish the UFC could do this with all of their cards. If they did that with a lot of their cards, I would not complain as much about the quality of them. This thing should be done with by 1 or 1 or 1:30. So really excited about that. But anyways, let's get right to it. Starting off with the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card. First fight, middleweight Ron Stallings versus Justin Jones. Both guys coming off of their UFC debut losses. Ron Stallings getting TKO'd by Uriah Hall. Justin Jones losing a decision to Corey Anderson. A fight that wasn't very competitive. Got taken down, got outstruck on the feet, was never in any big trouble. And Ron Stallings ate one big punch from Uriah Hall that put him down, and that was it. Actually, the fight was stopped due to a cut, but still got dropped pretty convincingly. So I don't have a good sense of either of these guys, really. I'm not really qualified to make a pick on this fight, but Ron Stallings has more experience. He was in Strikeforce, 12-7 record. Justin Jones only has 4 pro fights, so I'm just going to go with Ron Stallings. And also I think he fought the more dangerous opponent, but I really don't know who's going to win here. But both guys have fought in the UFC. I got to make a pick, so I'll just go with Stallings. Next fight up, we're going to have to skip a heavyweight fight. Shamil Abdurrahimov and Timothy Johnson. Two newcomers. I don't know them. We're going to skip it. Next up, a lightweight Gray Maynard versus Alexander Yakovlev. To me, it's really sad that Gray Maynard is still fighting. I think he's become the Alistair Overeem of the lightweight division, a guy who's just so far over the hill. His chin is so severely compromised at this point. He really shouldn't be fighting. I mean, he's been knocked out in his last 3 fights by Nate Diaz. Ross Pearson, I thought in the last fight against Ross Pearson, he still won the first round. Showed some decent takedowns in there and a little bit of ground and pound, but just the first punch that connected cleanly, he got knocked out, and then before that, got knocked out by TJ Grant. But Alexander Yakovlev fought Damian Maia in his debut. A really tall order. Didn't look like he belonged in there. Got taken down, controlled for the first 2 rounds, but was able to stay out of any submission attempts. And then in the last round, I think he tagged Maia, hurt him on the feet, but took over late in the fight. And if he can have that kind of success and aggression against Gray Maynard, Gray Maynard, like I said, I think he's just not able to take a shot from anyone really anymore. And if he's able to connect, I think he can put him out. But I'm going to take Maynard here. I think his skill level is still high enough to beat really just a bottom of the barrel guy like Yakovlev. I'm going to take Gray Maynard, but I'm not confident in it. He can certainly be put out, I think. But Yakovlev also in his last fight got controlled by Nicholas Masoke. He was able to just tie him up, clinch with him. Yakovlev couldn't create any separation and was really just smothered against the fence the whole fight. So Maynard with his grappling skills, I think he can do something similar, get it to the ground. But I don't know. Maynard's just really shouldn't be fighting anymore. But I'll go with Maynard to win a decision. Next up at women's bantamweight, Liz Carmouche versus Lauren Murphy. Liz Carmouche, the only fight I was impressed with her in was the Ronda Rousey fight. Ended in the first round, but was able to make it competitive. Just went, didn't hold back, went for the rear naked choke, was able to take her back off of the judo throw. Was really the only person able to do that in the UFC. And then I was also impressed with her in the Jessica Andrade fight. Was able to finish that fight. I believe finished her off with ground and pound. Yeah. And then her last two fights against Alexis Davis and Miesha Tate, I thought were really kind of piss poor, especially the Alexis Davis fight. She just didn't do anything on the feet, just circling around the cage with her back to the fence the whole time, just eating leg kicks from Davis. Really did nothing. And then in the Miesha Tate fight, put up a tough fight, I guess. Miesha Tate didn't look good at all in that fight either, but, still wasn't able to do much at all. Really kind of a stalemate grappling match. And then Lauren Murphy getting out wrestled and dominated by Sarah McMahon in her last fight. Really nothing to take away there. Just fought off of her back the whole time. I'm going to go with Carmouche just because of her experience and her competition, her experience against high-level opponents. But I think she's kind of lost some motivation. It doesn't seem she's having too much success anymore. And I don't know. It could be another really close, uneventful fight, but I'll go with Carmouche. Now moving on to the Fox Sports 1 main card. Prelim card was also on Fox Sports 1. At lightweight, Dustin Poirier versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. Poirier making his lightweight debut, and I really think his move to lightweight, I don't have much hope for his success at lightweight. I don't really understand why he moved up. I mean, to me, for years he was one of the elite guys at featherweight, and losses to McGregor and Korean Zombie. Who else did he lose to? Cub Swanson in a really competitive fight. Losses to those top elite guys to me don't really warrant a weight class change. And at 155, you have all of these great wrestlers at the top. Dos Anjos, Nurmagomedov, even Pettis, not even the champion anymore. All those guys at the top, I don't see Poirier having the skills to beat any of those guys, and he didn't really have to deal with any really high-level wrestlers at 145 to go up to 155. Just really makes no sense to me. But he's not fighting a top guy here. He's fighting Carlos Diego Ferreira, who's had 2 fights in the UFC. Took out Colton Smith really impressively in his debut. Used a judo throw to get him down, and then was able to choke him out without even throwing the hooks in. It was pretty impressive. And then in his next fight against Ramsey Nijam, it was a firefight. Ate a lot of shots, but was having more success with his attack and was able to crack Nijam, put him away. And then his last fight got out-grappled, really kind of manhandled by Beneil Dariush, who just had a really impressive win over Darren Cruikshank. But Ferreira, I think, was kind of exposed in his last fight a little bit, even being the Brazilian guy and showing great grappling and submissions against Colton Smith. Really wilted under the size and the pressure of Dariush. Poirier, I believe, will have a height advantage. Let me confirm that. He's 5'9", and Ferreira is 5'8", so I guess not. But, Poirier, is a decent grappler, has a great Darce choke that he's hit a couple of times. Um, but he's not really a guy to who's had really extended grappling exchanges on the mat. If he doesn't go for that Darce choke quick, he's not really a top control guy, a guy who spends a lot of time on the ground. So I don't really know how that will play out on the feet. Poirier, well, a good striker, has shown that against Jonathan Brookins and nearly knocked out Eric Koch on the feet. Um, he is a little too eager to get into a firefight, and was put out by McGregor. I thought that was fluky, though. It was a shot that landed in the back of the head. But even against a really low level guy like Akira Khorasani, Poirier was really eager to get into a firefight with him, and it cost him early. He got rattled, got tagged, and a guy like Ferreira, who has proven that he can have some success in a firefight like that against Nijam. I could see him coming in with some big power shots and hurting Poirier, possibly putting him out. But I think Poirier has the more complete game. He's fought in a lot higher level opponents than Ferreira has, obviously, in his really young UFC career. I have to go with Poirier here. I don't like his chances to be a top 10 guy at lightweight, but I think he just has more tools than Ferreira. I think he'll be a little more technical with the striking, but could be a pretty competitive fight. Next up at featherweight, Clay Guida versus Robbie Peralta. Clay Guida, I just don't enjoy watching him fight at all anymore. When he gets on top, he has zero ground and pound. He has a really hard time just making anything happen off of his takedowns. Against Kawajiri, dropped him in the first round with a really ugly looking shot. I mean, his striking technique, his form looks pretty bad these days. And against Hatsuhioki, couldn't get anything going from top position. Was having a lot of trouble with Hioki's guard. And then got finished by Mendes and Bermudez, I think, really showing that he can't compete with these younger guys coming up. Robbie Peralta, though, definitely not an elite fighter, but I think he's shown he can put together a good game plan. I was actually really impressed with his performance over Honey Jason. Was able to put his combinations together well. Before that, had really been kind of a one-shot guy loaded up on one big power shot. Had some knockouts early in his career over some low-level guys. But against Honey Jason, really timed his shots well, was able to defend the takedowns when he was on the ground, was able to get up and even got a reversal at one point to get on top of Honey Jason. I really didn't expect him to win that fight. I thought he looked good. But then in his last fight against Thiago Tavares, just got mauled, taken down easily, got his back mounted and pounded out, and was finished off with the submission. Against Esteban Payan, off of his back, looked terrible. I think Payan was in side control, and Peralta was just laying there, not doing a thing to get back up or recover guard. So Guida with his really high pressure grappling game, always going for takedowns and always fighting in close range. I think he can press Peralta up against the fence, get some takedowns, and control him. On the feet, though, I think Peralta has an advantage, and Guida, his striking looks really sloppy. If he gets into a brawl here, I think Peralta definitely has the power to at least have a chance to catch him. But I don't think Peralta has the takedown defense or really that kind of wrestling ability to go 3 rounds defending takedowns and fighting off a strong grappler like Guida. So I think Guida's going to win a decision here. Next up at women's bantamweight, Juliana Pena versus Milana Dudieva. A lot of people thought Elizabeth Phillips got robbed against Dudieva in her debut. I didn't. I scored that fight for Dudieva. Phillips was able to get on top a lot, but kind of just fell into her takedowns. She wasn't actually taking her down. She didn't go for complete a double or anything. They just kind of she just kind of fell into that position. a few times. And Dudieva, I thought, was fighting well off her back, was scrappy on the feet, always won the exchanges on the feet, not landing anything devastating, but just outpointing her. But if she was having trouble with Elizabeth Phillips on the ground, I don't think this is even going to be close. I think Pena should just take her down and smash her, much like she did to Jessica Rakoczy to win the tough finale. Pena, that was her only fight in the UFC, so this is like a year and a half long layoff. Obviously that could affect her, but I think she's just so talented. Looked great on the show, submitting Shayna Baszler, and can't remember who else she beat on the show, but really looks like a talented young fighter. Good grappling ability, really strong on top, real strong ground and pound. So I like her to win this fight big. I think she's going to smash Dudieva, get a violent finish here. Next up, a lightweight, Michael Chiesa versus Mitch Clarke. Two strong grapplers, but Chiesa really having much more success in the UFC than Clarke has. Clarke fought Anton Kavenin early in his UFC career. Losses to Cholish and Kavenin. I thought he got cut, I guess not, but then had a really long layoff. Actually only about a year, but came back to fight John McGuire and win over Iaquinta that no one seems to respect or really care about, because Iaquinta has become one of the top guys at lightweight and rebounded very quickly and in a big way from that loss to Mitch Clarke. But Mitch Clarke just doesn't seem like a very complete or devastating fighter. Real sneaky on the ground. His win over Iaquinta, the finishing move was really impressive. He was getting taken down and kind of eating a lot of ground and pound before he got the submission, but found a Darce choke from his back from a really weird position and choked Iaquinta unconscious. So, I mean, you got to give him credit. And Chiesa, against Colton Smith was having a little bit of trouble early on, had his back taken, had to fight off a rear naked choke. So if he's not careful, I could see Clarke having a chance to capitalize, but I really think that's unlikely. Chiesa, has fought some good guys, was real competitive with Jorge Masvidal, dropped him in the first round, but eventually got submitted himself. And then against Francisco Trinaldo, a solid fighter, was able to pretty much have his way with him, taking him down and just staying in his guard, winning the fight there with top control. And his striking is very rudimentary. He uses some front kicks well, though, but not too much going on the feet. And his last fight against Joe Lozon just couldn't deal with the pace. I picked him to win that fight, but couldn't deal with the pace. Lozon had better striking, and I thought that was a legitimate stoppage with the cut. But, Mitch Clarke, not a dominant fighter. Even his win against John McGuire, just got some brief takedowns. Didn't do a whole lot on the feet. McGuire looked terrible in that fight. So I have to go with Chiesa. I think he can probably get a finish here. I mean, he's a really tough guy and really great with that rear naked choke. Has wins over Kavenin and Iaquinta with that. So I have to go with Chiesa. Next up, co-main event, Jorge Masvidal versus Al Iaquinta. Like I already said, super excited for this fight. Real high-stakes fight. Great matchmaking. I've been really impressed with Iaquinta in his last two wins. His finishes over Pearson and Joe Lozon. I think he's come really far. He's really come a long way since some of his early fights getting choked out by Chiesa, having kind of a tough fight with Kevin Lee, and before that, Piotr Hallman. But I think for Iaquinta to win this fight, he's going to have to ascend to even a higher level than he did against Pearson and Lozon. Because Masvidal, he's just, when I think of a complete fighter, Masvidal definitely embodies that. He has one of the most complete games in MMA in the UFC. Great takedowns, really strong wrestling, great control on the ground. His striking is some of the most technical in the UFC, one of the best combination strikers. Against Chiesa, was landing some great combinations. He'll throw 3-4 punch combinations, going to the body, going to the head. Showed a good submission, good Darce choke finish against Chiesa. I'm really high on Masvidal. Kind of lacks the one shot fight-ending power that Iaquinta, I think, will have the advantage in this fight. But was able to drop James Krause in his last fight a couple of times. But the big thing to consider here, Iaquinta, I think, definitely has a chance to win because Masvidal is always dropped in the first round, always seems to be vulnerable, does a great job of recovering, but was dropped by Chiesa, who's not a great striker at all, and was dropped by Rustam Habalov, I think, in the third round with a spinning wheel kick, and also dropped by Darren Cruikshank in his last fight. And Iaquinta definitely has shown in his last few fights he has the power, the prowess on the feet to get that done. And I think Masvidal is really vulnerable in that first round. If Iaquinta can connect, I definitely see him having a chance to put Masvidal away. But that's the question: can Iaquinta follow up on that one big shot? I do think Masvidal will get dropped early here. But can Iaquinta actually finish him off? I don't know. I really like the way that against Lozon, Iaquinta had him hurt, but didn't really blow his wad, just kind of methodically kept landing punches and walking him down to get the finish. But if he can't put him away early, I definitely see Masvidal winning the decision. If the fight goes the distance, I don't think Iaquinta can win it. Masvidal, I think, is just too good transitioning from striking to wrestling. Showed great wrestling against Darren Cruikshank. Iaquinta has shown a bit of grappling, but I don't think he transitions nearly as well from striking to wrestling as Masvidal does. And hasn't really shown much of a submission game at all, really, in the UFC. So I think Masvidal wins the decision, but really has to weather the storm in the first round. And we'll see if Iaquinta has the power. But I'm going to take Masvidal to win a decision, but it can be real close. Iaquinta has a real chance of finishing him first or second round, I think. But I'm going to take Masvidal to win a decision. Next up, main event, featherweight fight. Chad Mendes versus Ricardo Lamas. These have to be the number 3 and 4 contenders behind Aldo and McGregor. Actually, these guys are probably ahead of McGregor. Deserve to be in the rankings anyway, and maybe Edgar, you could say, is above both of these guys as well. But Mendes and Lamas, another incredible fight. I respect both these guys a lot, but I don't see this being as competitive or as close as a lot of other people seem to think. I really think Mendes just really has a more complete game to beat Lamas here. On the feet, I think Mendes packs way more power in his punches. He, has great hand speed. He's extremely explosive. I think, he's one of these guys that can just kind of blitz his opponents and knock them out. Has had several knockouts against really low-level guys, though. Cody McKenzie, Yatsen Meza, and Darren Elkins, who isn't quite a low-level guy, but I think a pretty limited striker. Ricardo Lamas, I was really impressed with him in his last performance against Dennis Bermudez. I picked him to lose that fight, but dropped him with a jab and then finished him off with the guillotine. I thought that was it a rear naked choke? But really impressive. Ricardo Lamas, though, to me, is a guy who needs the finish to win the fight. If he doesn't get you out of there soon, he's never put together 3 rounds of really dominant fighting. Going back to the Hatsu Hioki fight years ago, I thought he lost that fight, spent a lot of time on his back, seemed to be really gassed, and was just attacking with the guillotine off of his back for most of the fight. Even against Cub Swanson, his first fight in the UFC, really struggled early on with the speed and the dynamic striking of Swanson, and was able to just take him down and submit him with arm triangle choke. And then in his fight against Aldo, I thought it was a pretty poor effort. Couldn't do anything there. The finish against Eric Koch, another really early finish that he got, just kind of created the finish out of nowhere. But then against Hawker and Diaz, the fight went the distance, and that was a super close fight. Some people thought Diaz won. I thought Lamas won, but it was really close and was not impressive. Really, all he was able to do was throw a few combinations, none that really landed cleanly, run him back into the fence, get in on his legs, but could never complete the takedown. And obviously had the great finish against Bermuda. So kind of inconsistent if he can't get that finish. But I think Mendes just has the better takedown game, more explosive. I think he's stronger, a better athlete. And on the feet, I just think he packs a lot more power in his strikes. Lamas might be a little more technical. But I see this going deep, if not all 5 rounds. And I think Mendes just really is able to get a lot of takedowns. And on the feet, I think he's just going to hit harder, really land more shots. And, Mendes has gone the distance. Some fights where he hasn't looked all that dominant or impressive, even early in his career against guys like Hani Yaya or Michihiro Omigawa. Really only got those dominant finishes against the low-level guys like we talked about. And also against Clay Guida, his striking looked really great and was just really storming him on the feet. And then against Nick Lentz, not a really dominant win either, but I've got to go with Mendes. I think he wins a decision or possibly a late finish. I'll be really surprised if Lamas is able to pull out a finish here. I don't think he'll be able to take Mendes down. And on the feet, I think Mendes just has more power and more hand speed. So I'm going with Mendes. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC Fight Night 63, Mendes versus Lamas. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe. We have 3 other events in April. I'll have predictions for all of them. I'll try to have them out early, about a week and a half before the fight. But thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.